been a while since I went live, and long overdue. Long overdue. I hope that you're well, and I won't rush into my conversation. I'll let a few people join in, assuming there's a few that would like to join the conversation. I am keen to talk on the ramifications of the Tartarian information and the implications of the likelihood that we've been mud flooded once, twice, perhaps more than that. And in recent times, in recent history. So that's something that I'd like to talk about. There's other things I'd like to talk about as well. Some of it's, to do with my personal journey through this information, going from a guy 5 or 6 years ago who would still have been watching TV, still have been quoting, the late night TV political pundits. 10 years ago, siding with Tony Blair with the war against Saddam Hussein. So I've come an awful long way, and I suspect if you are where you are and you're listening to this still, then you are on a similar journey, and I hope that you are. And I make no particular kind of claims about enlightenment. I use terms like awake and awoken and consciousness and so on, but I don't want to make claims of super kind of consciousness or anything like that at this point in time. What I'm keen to do is to say that I'm just a regular person who has made some incredible discoveries, and along that way has gone from someone who rejected any idea of spiritual transcendence, any idea of a higher world, a higher power, a greater thing than just this materialist world. I went from that 6 or 7 years ago, 5 years ago, to a Noah. Noah spelled Knower, a knower of this truth that we are divine beings and divine expressions of a most high, a most wondrous creator, energy, essence, entity, living being, I don't know. But we are absolutely one with that, and we are an expression of that in the most magnificent love that one could possibly imagine, beyond what one could possibly imagine. That's what we're from, that's what we're part of, and yet we're here in this system designed to make us fight and angry and jealous and divided. There's a piece went out on the Guardian newspaper this week that was some video clip of a few of us that Roxanne had kind of organized, and they opened with a clip of me shouting in Hyde Park at Speaker's Corner something about your government wants you divided. I keep wanting for that to have said, your government has lied to you about everything. I may have said that in that piece. I don't know. I only watched it once, and in the one time I watched it, I was like, oh, what are they gonna have played? You know, what are they gonna have played that I said, and how are they gonna misrepresent it, and so on. But it was anchored by Dave Murphy, so it was, you know, he can handle himself very well in that situation, in that sort of situation. So he and Roxanne did a great job of representing the thing. So it was fine, but I don't think I said, your government has lied to you about everything. And when you realize, if you've been at the flat earth for cold face for a while, and you realize, shit, it's not the only game in town, it's not the most important thing even. Like the Illuminati card game goes, that you know, the flat earthers know something, it's worth 2 points, the card, but it's not the most important part of the game. It's just a piece of the puzzle. And you know, Tartaria has been around for a while. The guys who've been researching Tartaria extensively have been doing so, I think, for a couple of years. So respect to those guys that have been doing that. You know, mud flood is something I've been aware of for a few years. And I've been looking at buildings for some time with a new view. But this idea that it was an entire culture that has been eradicated or wiped out or written from the history books, it just brings another interesting twist to the whole thing, doesn't it, friends? Because it's not like, okay, so we've been mud flooded before. They decided not to tell the public because the public would be frightened or wouldn't be so easy to control, and people would demand to know when. And if you knew when it was going to happen, then how would anyone ever go to work? How would anyone do anything? Hi, can I? Zakara, I can't read it very well. I'm halfway through watching this video with you and Richard Lopez. Richard, yeah, we're talking about a couple of hours. I really jive, I think, with that. Jive with a lot of your commentary. Thank you. You know what, Caroline, I got an immense amount of good feedback from doing that thing with Richard, actually. Thanks to Richard for doing all the editing or whatever, you know, that filmmaking part of it. But I'm reminded that people are keen to have conversations, listen to conversation, or be part of conversations. This is what I was looking for. To be a part of conversations that have got the potential to allow ideas to flow, you know, and to allow for us to chew over this stuff. I think someone made a comment in his thing that it was nice to see debate or discussion beyond the I'm not quite sure how you characterize it, but the point is that there is room for this kind of conversation. I think we need to, you know, I tell you what I think that with the mud flood stuff and Tartaria stuff is it's so tangible. It's so, you know, people can really literally, you know, go and touch it, see it. When I look at buildings and I see how the original fascia, just a certain hue of red, and then they've brick, and then they've added, say, some kind of a portico to the front of it, and you can see the seams where they've joined, and you can see the slight coloration difference in the brickwork. These are the sorts of tells, the clues that go, this isn't the same builder. You know, the quality of the finish isn't as good. You know, eventually the guys who want to cling to their ideas that this is how people built was to sort of dig themselves deep into holes before starting to build upwards when they were doing it by hand, shovel. Nah. Eventually those people will get... So what I think is that we're meant to be having discussion, we're meant to be having more debate and bringing more light to this, because this is a subject that I can talk to people about that doesn't make them think that I'm nuts. Well, to some people about. I think it's a little bit more of a conversation starter than a conversation killer. Flat Earth tends to kind of be that trigger phrase, isn't it? And then once you've said that, it's like the tinnitus has been turned up to 110%, and people just can't hear anything more you say. So thanks for that, Caroline, and yeah, I mean, hopefully Richard will invite me back and we'll have another conversation, because he has a good way about him and a good reach too. And I think the Tartaria thing, well, my mate Martin Lika and Lee from Flat Earth British sub, Lee Mowat, they've, since the Max Egan thing kicked off about a month ago, they've just seen the interest in their work. Captain Kirk, these guys seen the interest in their work fly off the shelves. Fantastic. So it really makes you think people are going to come around to Flat Earth the other way around. You know, they're going to get to Flat Earth, but they don't have to get there Flat Earth first, or even 9/11 first. I mean, I wonder about that. I don't want to get too far away from topic, because time is of the essence for all of us. This has been a journey for me. So YouTube subscribers is the proper term, isn't it? But it's interesting that, because I know that amongst the subscribers there are people who wish me well, and then there are people who wish me unwell. And it's like, you know, if you're going through a shit time in your life, do you really want for the people who wish you unwell to know that? And I think that for me, part of the journey is to get to a point where that no longer matters, where that I know that this is all about love, and that my ego is concerned perhaps with who knows that I'm going through a difficult time and who doesn't. Honey, would you give me my other charging cable, please? So that's that. You know, and there's something I should say. I think it's fair to say this too. I think it's right that I say this, because in earlier videos, if you've been following my channel for a while, you would have heard me talk about how we got the birth certificate for Alexander. Sorry, we refused to go for the birth certificate of Alexander, but we got the passport for him, which is fantastic. But I was also challenging other aspects of the straw man and capital letters thing and so on. And I walked away from a lot of credit card debt, capitalized, no problem. You know, I'm not really sweating about the debt collection agencies and so on with that. But there are some areas where I haven't had the sort of success that some guys get, or some guys talk about getting. And I think that it's important that I'm frank and say, hey, it's Alexander, and say that, you know, I haven't won every battle, and that's been a painful process. I'm just putting this thing on charge because I think I've got to put it this way. It's been a painful process, and in a couple of cases cost us a lot of money, because, you know, when the bailiffs are banging on the door, or rather, then, you know, you've got to. Anyway, I'm just saying that it hasn't been the smoothest of rides for me, and I don't know that I want to make out like this is as easy as anything. But I just want to say that I'm talking here on the issues of what might be the ramifications of Tartaria and Mudflood, and that if we are due to have another kind of event that is cataclysmic, well, then we must be ready for it in the mind, body, and soul. You know, there isn't much more you can say about that, if that's how it's going to be. I'm optimistic that that's not how it's going to be. But I do think that our heart or our human energy plays a big part in this. And I've been working on this conception of how if we live in a dielectric inertial plane, an electromagnetic universe with a dielectric inertial plane, that the actual power or the energy of the engine that runs this thing comes from the human heart, and which is why the human heart has been so messed with over generations, because the ability to put a sort of negative spin on the human energy of what's going out into this dielectric plane allows for the conflation or the inflation of the lower energies, the masculine energies. And it's therefore imperative that if this is the case, that we begin to learn this early on, because if we do, then we're able to steer the heart, we're able to steer the human trajectory, and perhaps alter the balance. They call it like maybe a pole shift, but alter the balance in the way that there's a balance, or that there's more positive going in than negative. Now, the reason I say this and connect it to the mud flood stroke Tartaria story is because if Tartaria is to be unfurled in front of us, then Tartaria is either going to be a cause for people to be divided over or get behind. So people might say, oh, we were once Tartarians, and we have been so traduced by some other group, and so now we need to be angry with that other group. Or we end up squabbling over whether or not we were of a higher culture before, or we were the lower culture that came afterwards. I guess what I'm thinking is that, why is this coming to our attention so much now? Why is this so important now? Because it's informative, but it's also divisive. And if it's divisive, then it has the power to keep us arguing with each other, keep us at loggerheads. So I am just offering this as a little nugget of consideration, that do the work and the research and find what you need to find and do this, but it has to be that internal work. You have to do the kind of cleaning up the things at home, getting everything right at home, because whatever comes next, whatever we're going to find out next, whatever events are down the pipeline, if anything, we might have the chance to shape that. But I think that we only shape that by getting our love. I was going to say love muscle, but that's not the right approach. That's not the right term. Our love energy, right, and getting that powered up. Our green lantern, as I said. So that's that. I have this. I will build more on this conception of how the universe, if our universe is structured in the sort of dielectric inertial plane, how it makes sense to me how the sun might work and how the stars might work and how we might participate in all of that. So I'll do some more work on unpacking that, perhaps over the weekend. So I hope you have a good weekend, and I should say hello to some people who dropped by. I know I say this every time about the Hazen and Jax. All hearts live in the present moment, always, like you said. That talk with Richard. Our heart energy is what they are, they're messing with it, but we control our heart energy always. And thanks for that, Jax. It's about being present, and everything in the system everything in the system is about pulling you out of that. And I think that you know, even me, like I started 2018 much more present than I was, say, towards the end of 2018, where I'd been drawn out of that presence by a bunch of challenges, you know. And I guess why I was wanting to talk about those other encounters with the system is that these are all things that, you know, I could spend years fighting the system, fighting the system, but I'm just carrying like all of this negative energy from an illusion in which actually I'm meant to be finding a heart-centered or a balanced place. I think that if the heart is balanced, then oh man, my dog just jumped up on the sofa with muddy feet. If it's heart-centered, so heart is earth, right? So, you know, we're not looking after the earth because we're not looking after the heart. Is it that? I think so. But what if it's like these? If it's two, as I was suggesting, I've been suggesting for a little while, if it's these two torus rubbing against each other, or these two fields rubbing against each other, then the manner in which you sort of allow the energies to flow around them might be absolutely instrumental in determining how things work in a harmonious way or in a disharmonious or dissonant way. So I'll keep it like that. I've got my little man is working up here, and my wife. So I will say goodbye. Thanks for stopping by. That's a lot of writing there. Who wrote all of that here? Okay, I'll leave that to that. Oh yeah, that's nice of you to say. Flat Earth. Is that equinox? Does that say equinox? Espresso. Flat Earth espresso. That's cool. Yeah. I hope so. I haven't had an invite to join the tour, but I have been invited to talk at the UK convention. Robin has invited me to talk there, so I plan to talk at that. I hope to go on the tour. I hope to do much more in 2019. You know, 2018 for me was like a, you know, make my mark, as it were, or make a little mark and put a marker down and say, here I am, let me do something. I don't know what, you know, and I've been wanting to find a way to contribute. And those who've been on my channel for a while will know that I'm ex-military, and not by choice. My government made laws that forced me to go to war. So, you know, I understand that side of things, and so I come from that side of things. But I realize that that's not a solution that's going to win hearts and minds. It's not really at all the way forward. In fact, the system would love us, I think, to choose that. When I talk about the system, I wonder if it's just who we are and what we are, but I think we have to become something more, and I'm trying to become something more. That's my journey too, and hopefully to work with others, to help others. That's what I'd like to do. That's what I hope to do. That's what I'm doing. That's what Andrea and I are doing, and whether it's helping other fathers to be better at their fathering responsibilities, because now I'm having to relearn and put my energy into that in a committed way. Whether it's helping people to be healthier in the lives that they have, because we need to take care of the temple. Whether it's helping people to kind of move through the stages of learning that we hopefully need to make to take this idea of empowering the green heart energy. Imagine that. Imagine the situation where you could subdue a heart energy or empower a hard energy such that for centuries societies would either nourish and flourish, or implode and break themselves down. I happen to think that there is a natural cycle of breaking up and breaking down, and just like in the forest where trees will eventually fall and rot and become new trees and nourish new trees. So some of that might be what we have to endure as part of nature's natural thing. But I suspect that there's something more to this consciousness, and we have a role. This is why you feel like you should be doing something. I feel I should be doing something. And 2019 will hopefully be a year that we do a whole lot more of things. Because when I look at 4 years now, and I look at nearly 4 years for me now, how the traffic has changed for flat Earth. Now you add a mud flood and Tartarian kind of, flags and information behind that, then yeah, you're starting to kind of build quite a case against this system. Do they pull the plug? Who knows? But we just got to get our hearts in order. We got to do that internal work. That seems to be the way, because you can't go and stand in Parliament Square and shout at them. You could take your clothes off, shout at them naked, do whatever the hell you like. They're just going to carrying on. They will even have a news article go up just before the Prime Minister gets up to speak. On the news at 6, they'll go, and today the Prime Minister did something very clever, which was absolutely a waste of time. And in other news, some crazy people think that the Earth is flat. Now go back to bed, and there's nothing more for you to see here. So it's as simple as that for the system at the moment. They're just ignoring whatever we're doing. But 2019 is going to be a much bigger year. So let's see where it ends. Let's see where it goes. And hopefully I can do my part to bring kind of that love thing, I need to continue to do work on myself for that.